Caroline Lucas for Fanciability, 46.
Oh, I thought it'd be higher, actually. I thought it'd be higher.
I think I can blow you all out of the water with David Miliband, 95.
Shame he's not around anymore. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
You just caught us playing a little game of election top trumps, where we were comparing the fanciability of various MPs, party leaders, and ministers. Welcome to Adam's Election Broom Cupboard. If you've not watched before, basically we've been inspired by the CBBC Broom Cupboard from the 80s and 90s, except we've done a political version with all this stuff in it. And luckily, I'm not locked in here on my own. I've got some guests. Would you guys like to introduce yourself to the Facebook viewers?
Hello, Facebook world. I'm Ayesha Hazarika. I used to be a Labour advisor and I'm now a stand-up comedian and commentator.
Hi, I'm Geoff, a comedian. I vote Conservative and I'm a working class traitor, basically.
Why'd you say that?
Well, that's what Facebook generally says to me. So
Also, he's got a lot of self-hatred.
Yeah, you do as a working class person that ends up voting Conservative.
And professionally, how do you brand yourself?
Well, it's one of Britain's few Conservative voting comedians. I'm not allowed to say only because there are others, but they're probably too smart. Too smart. Well, we can't say it on air.
Can't out them.
Look, you know what it's like with comedians. A lot of them talk socialism but live capitalism. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of limited companies out there.
We don't just want to hear from these guys, we want to hear from you as well, the great Facebook watching, listening, reading public. The big question today is, who has had the worst election campaign? Who has had the worst general election campaign? There's quite a lot of choice, I would say, as a dispassionate observer.
I'd say, for me, it's Tim Farron, in a weird way, but it's sort of terrible in a stealth way. Because he should have. It seemed to make sense at the beginning, didn't it? That land grab for the Remain votes, but it hasn't really worked out for him, and he has become slightly demented as it's gone on. He's sort of like, he just strikes me as the kind of adult that would cry if he lost at a board game. I don't know why I was getting that vibe, but when I saw that debate in Cambridge,
He's kind of morphed into Owen Jones's older brother.
he has.
And also, he's kind of also like, the most memorable phrase for him is going to be "smell my spaniel."
Yeah.
That was when he was doing a little campaign visit with some dogs, and it wasn't his dog because he's actually got a pet dog.
That makes
but it wasn't his
even
pet dog; it was someone else's spaniel. And he
weirder.
said, "Smell my spaniel."
So weird.
Which
so
is up there with. Do you remember Nick Clegg doing a visit to a hedgehog sanctuary in the last election? And he ended up, I think, putting his finger up a hedgehog's bum.
No.
Did he?
Anyway.
No.
Right, so if you're just joining us, the big question is, who has had the worst general election campaign in the last 6 weeks? Plenty of choice, I would suggest. Jonathan Hibbard agrees with one of our guests, at least. Lib Dems, actually, hemmed in by the media on a couple of red herrings, and they never really got going. Grace Musgrave says, Theresa May for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But let's look at some evidence rather than just making assertions. This is Theresa May talking to ITV News' Julie Etchingham. Have a listen to this. She was being asked about if she'd ever done anything naughty as a child. And here is the typical Theresa May answer.
Oh, goodness me. Well, I suppose gosh, do you know? I'm not quite sure.
Well, there must have been a moment.
Nobody's ever perfectly behaved, are they? I mean, I have to confess, when me and my friends sort of used to run through the fields of wheat, the farmers weren't too pleased about that.
And you can see the rest of that thrilling interview on ITV1 tonight with Julie Etchingham. Thanks to ITV for letting us show that scintillating clip.
So relatable.
Yeah, she can't remember
who hasn't?
naughty she did
So
as a kid.
in touch.
Who hasn't run through the wheat fields?
What is incredible about this election campaign is it started off with Corbyn being 20 points behind and a photograph in the toilet. And basically, Theresa May has had the absolute stinker of a campaign. The more we've seen of her, we've realised she's got the charisma of an ironing board. And it's
This cardboard cutout.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this the real one? Oh, it's the real one. I just thought for a
that
second.
is actually much more charismatic and full of life. That is positively bursting with life and warmth and connection.
I do think, though, in terms of
telly.
where she started, when you've got people on the streets of Newcastle going, I'm going to vote for Theresa May, there's only one way that's going to go. So she was always going to lose votes, but I think she's exacerbated it with a slightly eccentric campaign. And, she said she was running through the fields. in that interview. He didn't say what was in the fields. It might have been poppy
You
fields.
should
Wheat.
wheat.
She said wheat.
Should
Wheat fields, yeah. Well, you know.
See,
I think
that's a pushback against gluten-free sort of people like Jeremy Corbyn.
yeah, exactly.
So,
Urban metropolitan
hashtag in
elite.
touch.
And she was
hashtag in
drinking
touch.
full-fat milk the whole time. Just to...
and a can of Stella or something like that. You know.
There is no nuance that a political pundit will not mind. Andrew Baxter says the Tories will still have a big win, but what does that say about Labour? Angus William Baker.
Oh, so
says,
good they named it twice.
the worst performer has been Diane Abbott. Absolute no-brainer. He actually says no-brainer, which I think might be a reference to her braininess rather than it being a no-brainer.
Yes.
I mean, it's weird with Corbyn, isn't it? There's a part of you that sort of admires his loyalty to her, but if you wonder what the Labour share of the vote would have been if he'd have got rid of her either before the campaign or any point before polling day, really.
Although it would be hard for Jeremy Corbyn to fire somebody for being rubbish at their figures when he did this
is
at Women's Hour last week.
How much will it cost to provide unmeans-tested childcare for 1.3 million children?
It will cost. It will obviously cost a lot to do so. We accept that.
I presume you have the figures.
Yes, I do.
So how much will it cost?
I'll give you the figure in a moment.
You don't know it? You're logging into your iPad here. You've announced a major policy and you don't know how much it will cost?
I mean, imagine I did that on this programme. Imagine I was just like, this
But
programme
you know
is...
what?
What's he doing
But
with
I know,
thumbprint? You got a
but-
thumbprint scan, Jez. You can't be in control of the tech sector when you're still going right. 16th of the 4th, 52.
But I actually think he's had quite a good campaign. He's had a much better campaign than anyone thought he was going to have. And to be fair, there have been lots of Tory ministers that haven't been able to name the figures. Like Karen Bradley, she had a terrible interview like today or yesterday about police numbers and stuff like that. Anyway, nobody cares about figures anymore. Like figures are so.
It's about how we feel now.
2015, yeah.
Okay.
It's
As a journalist, I think I would have to challenge that. But I remember, were you there with Harriet when she had that howler on the Daily Politics a few years ago on my home day job programme?
That always haunted me.
Just explain what was happening. So she was like looking down the lens like that, talking to the presenter, going blah blah blah, and then Andrew Neil said, "Yeah, but what was the number?" It was Joe Coburn.
Yeah.
And what happened?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Joe Coburn was like, "So how many apprentices or what's the figure?" And she was like, well, we're having a lovely day up here in wherever we were, and she was like, but what were the figures? And she's like, the weather is just really nice, and we're all, blah, blah. It was painful. But
was the weather not even really nice
it wasn't,
as well?
It was
She
actually,
just got it completely wrong.
The message from that
general.
is we hadn't done our homework on it. So you've got to do your homework on these things.
You've got to do your homework. I think what must have been particularly frustrating for Corbyn as well, because he's actually done the hard bit the night before. He'd been asked, were you a friend with Hamas? No. Are you still an IRA section commander? No. That number from earlier, I forgot it. I mean, you think that should have been, of those three things, to bat away those questions from Paxman was seriously impressive, and then to get that number wrong, he should have had it tattooed on his eyelids, really.
Right. Talking about someone who probably doesn't have a tattoo, Tim Farron, our friend from earlier that we were discussing.
Maybe one of a spaniel.
Well, what about Jesus?
For the 48%.
Anyway, let's have a look at what Tim Farron's been up to. And I noticed a little weird facet about Tim Farron's photo ops, which hopefully you will notice as you see them now. Here he is in a variety of cafes and kitchen environments. He's like making croissants in a bakery. He's making egg sandwiches in a cafe. And then he sits there with them in front of him and never eats any of them at any point. Never a crumb crosses his lips. Why is Tim Farron not?
2 words: bacon sandwich.
Bacon sandwich.
No one wants to don't eat. Like, if you're a politician, don't eat.
It's unreasonable
on camera.
to expect somebody to eat in public. It's difficult for actors as well, and that's their job. There's something slightly pervy as well about a group of people training a camera on somebody that's doing something essential as eating. I just
sensual?
think that, sensual. I mean, like a
Tim
sensual.
Farron eating a sausage sandwich is essential
eat your
to you.
food?
You bought sausage sandwich into it, I'd like to point out.
How do you
but
eat your
it works for
food?
me. I eat it slowly. Everything like me is like a Cadbury's flake or other flaky type chocolate.
Well, you mentioned the bacon sandwich. I, as a journalist, have watched that Ed Miliband market footage about 1,000 times. And when you watch it moving footage, like a video, it's impossible to get the shot of him going... It only exists as a still.
As a still in that tiny microsecond of time. But it lives on, sadly.
Would you like to create a microsecond of time for our viewers now of us eating something? There you go. That's how it works. That's,
Those are the kind of photos
process.
you don't get anymore as well. Because of digital cameras, we can just completely delete stuff like that. But do you remember back in the day when you only had 26 photos? There'd be loads where you just go... There'd always be a relative like that.
And also with selfies, you can kind of take it again.
Oh yeah,
So
and
you
again,
never
and again,
You never get a bad
and
selfie.
again,
Yeah.
and again.
Right, so the question, if you're just joining in, is who's had the worst general election campaign? Gary Wotton says the Conservatives have made a hash of this election. They were presented with an open goal and they missed the net. Theresa May is not a touchy-feely person and is out of her depth campaigning with the great unwashed. Whatever was she thinking in the first place?
That's got to be the understatement of the campaign, is that Theresa May is not a touchy-feely person. That's actually probably the best compliment she's had this election.
What's the opposite of touchy-feely?
It's
Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
He does like a hug.
He
does like a hug,
loves
doesn't
to
he?
Yeah,
hug it out.
Sakib Mia says Theresa May is a little insignificant politician. A lot of useless words, no facts. Don't really understand how people can trust her. She's not insignificant though, is she?
She's not so, but it's amazing how her stock has plummeted during this election campaign. Like, she went into it looking incredibly regal and elegant and sort of like in control. And actually, she is sort of, you know, even if she wins, it's amazing how her personal reputation's just taken like a
Or
big hit.
did the Sky News top trumps actually have it right 5 years ago when they said her potential, oh, you can never read that, was 6?
Who knew?
What's that out of?
7.
He's on message.
I've got to toe the party line.
You're going to get a bloody peerage the way things are going.
Well, like I say, I mean, I am one of those people that I wouldn't rule out voting Labour again. That's a genuine thing. I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay.
Whereas I think a lot of Labour voters make a lifetime pledge to never vote Conservative. But for me, it's for a lot of people, it's about that sort of slightly centre-right position and whoever occupies it best. Once upon a time, it was Blair. Now it seems to be Theresa May. But I mean, this election, it's not like I'm voting. I mean, it's like.
Do you feel excited about voting
No,
for Theresa
absolutely
May?
not. It's like, you know, like when you're buying a house and you exchange contracts and then you find out it's got subsidence. That's how I feel. It's
Or
like
rising dam.
I've got so
How many
far.
houses have you bought?
Well, you know, I'm doing all right. It's under corporation tax laws. I've been,
Yeah, exactly.
But you're just going to go through with it anyway.
Yeah.
I think.
We haven't mentioned Nicola Sturgeon. Let's look at some pictures of Nicola Sturgeon. She loves a comedy photo op. What's she doing in this one? Anyway, this is her doing her usual comedy photo op, which she arrives at in her helicopter, which the SNP have christened the Nickelopter.
Nicola, I see what they've done there.
What?
Like helicopter, Nickelopter. It's not
But it
very
doesn't
good.
make
That
sense.
sounds like
a slug.
that sounds like
Nickelopter.
that sounds like a cartoon on Nickelodeon. Like the Nickelopters coming to your town this week. They've got that seems a bit extravagant for the SNP having a
given
helicopter.
that they're like all about, you know, anti-austerity.
Yeah.
Mind you,
Scottish-
I suppose that fits into their narrative, which is just spend lots of money.
And also, in their defence, Scotland is massive. The constituencies are huge. And you can't just get the train to Shetland.
Not all of
Jeremy
them are
would.
massive.
Jeremy would go on one of those little push
He'd
me
be on his
pull
bike.
yous,
He'd be on his
and
bike
it would be vegetable powered.
from his allotment.
So Anne Warby says, remember the polls prior to the referendum? I wouldn't bank on Labour getting anywhere near governing this country. The pollsters, have they had a great election campaign?
Well,
One's here, one's there, one's there, one's here, one's there.
It's sort of become some of those polls. You get the impression it's a bit like pollster clickbait. They know that there's an audience out there, the same as you get like those left-wing shareable articles that are waiting for information like that. So if you can give them it, you get exposure. At the end of it, if they're made to look stupid, that exposure might not turn out to be good exposure. But you know, before this week, who'd heard of Servation? You know, I'm talking in terms of the British public, or even YouGov to that extent.
I think YouGov, the one that everyone is like, you better. I mean, that could prove to be an absolute stinker for YouGov, but came at such an interesting time because it kind of excited everybody. It was a bit like before the Scottish referendum poll. There was one Sunday Times poll that put independence ahead,
Which is
and
also
everybody.
YouGov.
Yeah.
Was that also
Yeah.
YouGov as well?
Their margin of error is basically their data, isn't it? That's what it seems to be. They say, yeah, well, this is what we think will happen, but with a margin of everything else that could possibly
Well,
happen.
to be really lame and scientific-y for a bit, the YouGov thing was a projection, not a poll. And they said that one outcome might be a hung parliament, but they had one outcome being a big Tory majority.
Can
And
you
actually one
imagine
being a big Labour majority.
Yeah,
Can you imagine a hung parliament, though? I mean, I know it's good in our line of work in some ways. I just don't think this country's got it in us.
Okay, a couple more comments. Isabella Davis says, the BBC has been so biased, they will lose.
yeah.
Of course it has. I don't know in which direction, but it
people,
definitely has.
You sicken
Oh, with your
Look at
Labour
this
Tory
is
bias.
we've had a BBC committee doing this wall, you know.
Do you know what? I did actually think
Where's
I was
Tim
a bit
Farron?
annoyed that
Where's
the Theresa
Tim
May
Farron?
They
one.
don't believe in cardboard cutouts. Unsustainable. We've got lots of Lib Dem
Why is there
winning
not
sides there.
a Nicola Sturgeon? one.
Yeah.
Only because
No, I'm not complaining.
we didn't have the budget to. Well, we've got? Oh no, here's Nicola Sturgeon. She's represented in stress ball form.
Well, there'll be some
Is that the
complaints.
This is not the Nicolopter. It's a Nicola Sturgeon stress ball.
Independence.
We actually asked the SNP press conference for a Nicola Sturgeon cardboard cutout, and they didn't provide one.
What?
Right. Annette McCartney says Corbyn could be the biggest disaster as Prime Minister. May has not shown herself well. Corbyn, really. Don't quite understand that because the punctuation doesn't quite make sense.
I think it's like Corbyn, really? Not that I'm down with the
Like,
kids, but I think
whatevs.
it's yeah. Like,
Really?
Corbyn. No, I think she might be saying Corbyn, really.
No, I think she's saying Corbyn. Really?
See, that's your
Really?
BBC bias, your left-wing communist
My
leanings coming out
punctuational
again.
bias.
Yeah.
Your grammar.
Tom Gurley says one gaffe after another by Bozo Boris Johnson, but the media ignore this.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. He hasn't actually been... I'm sure he would have made the gaffes if he'd been given the airtime, but he's been sort of kept in the Boris
I know,
cage most of
but
it.
for the
He's
tiny
been on all
bit-
the time. He's been on loads.
He's literally was wrestling Andrew Gwynn at the sort of Sky and Channel 4 debates. He did this kind of thing before, and there was all this sort of like man-on-man sort of, you know... It was,
Recreate what their body language was like,
Also,
just the two of you.
they were
It was
trying
I don't know
like-
if I could do that without committing some sort of...
basically like kind of... He's,
yeah.
there's
I'll be
lots
Barry
of kind
Gardner.
of like-
That'll be a lot better
Barry
for
Gardner
everybody
has
watching.
been the surprise hit of the election.
They're wheeling him out a lot, aren't they?
Barry Gardner is like the kind of, you
What
know...
Barry Gardner needs to learn is to do what they call a soundbite, as you well know, a little answer. I was interviewing him the other
It's like
day.
a
That was like
monologue.
about 2 hours long. My arm for holding the microphone was...
I'll tell you what Barry Gardner did brilliantly effectively in the spin room afterwards. He pretended to not realise people were getting interviewed. He just literally walked in front of a camera and went and turned and like did a piece to camera. Like, oh, have I got in your way?
Did he photobomb politics?
Yeah, he did.
Good old
Don't
Barry.
joke, we'll probably get somebody wandering in here
Actually,
now.
Barry
This is
Gardner's...
like-
I thought I can see Barry.
Hi, Barry.
Come
No,
on,
stay away.
No,
The programme's not long enough for you to come in.
So it's actually Andy
Right,
Crane.
okay, Paul
Like a tight
Nuttall.
top, a
We've
tight
not
five.
discussed Paul Nuttall.
Paul Nuttall.
And actually, the UKIP manifesto launched, it was the journalist that got as much attention as him. All our lovely colleagues like Laura Kuenssberg, etc., asking him tough questions, and they got booed by the UKIP audience. Shall we have a listen to that?
Sounds like you're nearest David blaming the Prime Minister for this attack and the circumstances that led to
Please. Let's be respectful.
There us brave journalists are, laying our lives on the line by going to various hotel conference suites to hear
Yeah.
people speak, and that's all you get.
I think Paul Nutt is one of my favourite moments of the campaign when they had that leaders' debate in Cambridge. And let's be honest, I don't want to go into the bias thing, but it certainly felt very Cambridge, that audience. And it just felt like he'd rocked up at like a vegan farmer's fair. That every time he tried to speak, it's not, I don't like the man or his politics, but he stood there and he fronted it out, didn't he, despite the fact the audience hated it.
My theory, Paul Nuttall actually loves having a really lefty audience screaming at him.
I love
Yep.
the fact that he kept calling Leanne Wood Natalie, like the whole time. And I also love the fact that he's got really upset about what Muslim women wear, and he dresses like Rupert the Bear.
They do not want to ban beekeepers' helmets, though. Very clear public announcement from UKIP. Right, who are we going to go to next? Shall we look at Leanne Wood, or shall we look at the Greens? I'm talking to the people behind the camera. OK, we're going to watch Leanne Wood, leader of Plaid Cymru. Now, this actually is not her mucking up. This is her doing something brilliant. She's being really human. She's in the car with the Victoria Derbyshire, singing along to the radio.
Oh.
You and I know it's all over the front page. You give me rollerblades, listen to the rest days. It's up to you. Now you're driving me crazy, thinking you may be losing your mind.
Would you like to sing your response to that?
I can't roll my R's like that.
I don't think it was possible for me to love Leanne Wood anymore, and there she is doing road rage. I love her so much. She's absolutely brilliant. She's completely dominated all the debates, and I just love every answer is, in Wales, we have a thing.
In the Ronda.
In the Ronda.
Everything happens in the Ronda. I don't know where it is, but I'm going there.
But isn't
Love
it
it.
just easy for her to just say whatever she wants? Because Plaid Cymru are never going to be in government at Westminster. They're not in government in Wales, so they can just promise whatever. They can say more money for Wales and less money for Wales, and more immigrants for Wales but fewer immigrants for Wales, and Brexit but not leaving the EU.
Yeah, our defence strategy is to raise the toll on the Severn Bridge to make it almost impossible for invaders to cross.
Look, it doesn't matter. She's got the most beautiful voice in politics, and I could listen to Leanne all day.
Methinks we're not treating her with the same level of scrutiny as the other party leaders we've just been discussing. Now, talking about lovely Welsh accents, stand by for a terrible Welsh accent, which appeared in this skit, so-called skit, released by the Green Party, which was then meant to be preparing for the TV debates. So you're going to see Caroline Lucas and her co-leader Jonathan Bartley preparing for the TV debates. And remember, this is the debate where where Theresa May nor Jeremy Corbyn turned up. This is the Greens comedy offering.
A future where we are united against racism and...
Strong and stable leadership. Strong and stable leadership.
She's
Strong
not
and stable...
going to be there, so there's really no point in doing that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So...
A country run for the many, not for the few. A country run for the...
not coming either.
Sorry. Yes.
Green Party will fight for a future where we're the first...
Strong and independent Wales. A strong and independent Scotland.
This isn't helping, Jonathan.
So I'm sure you could probably tell that wasn't the actual debate, which was a very big budget thing. That was the much lower budget Green skit about the debate. Do politicians, can they ever actually genuinely be funny and actually do a skit?
Absolutely not.
No.
I mean, all this talk about people reaching out to younger voters, no, just don't. It's better. Politics is what it is in a way. I think it's something that you have to come to, and they're humorless.
What, when you're
and
old?
It's turgid. Well, there's been a lot of talk about how you engage younger voters, but every time we've seen people try to engage younger voters, how does that feel?
I
It's
think
like when
Corbyn has engaged a lot of young voters.
But he's done it by
being funny.
But
True,
he's done it by being
not
him.
intentionally funny.
That's what I mean. He's done it by being him. He hasn't done it by kind of putting a baseball cap on back.
But he's got a lot of comedians on board. He's got a lot of like artists and stuff.
He's always
like
going to have
that.
that, isn't he? Let's
He hasn't got
you
apart
you
from
love
you
Jeremy.
when he gets you on board.
Yeah,
that's when he'll be Prime Minister.
I don't know. I saw that there was a very funny photo of him that Vogue circulated yesterday of him in the toilet with a baseball cap and some ballistic missile glasses on. I have no idea what that photo is, but it's my favourite image.
It was him at the train factory.
Yeah, it was amazing. That's how they kicked off the election. Yeah, that's how they kicked off the election.
I thought that was his nuclear bunker. I thought that was where you'd find him if Britain was under attack.
Yeah,
I had
a really bad joke about all systems go.
It's not a bad joke. That's good.
Thanks.
Does that work better in text than in real life?
Let's just
That'd still be in the top 5 of Tory slogans this election.
Okay. Lynn Miller says, "Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for this one. Are you going to play Liar, Liar? You know the Ska song saying she's a liar, liar.
Yeah.
Have you heard it? The Theresa May, she's a liar, liar song.
Yeah. She and it wasn't allowed censorship, man.
The sent bias BBC.
Just trying to keep us down.
No. As soon as they do equally rude songs about all the other parties, we'll play them all. So you've got 72 hours. Matt Westfall says, got to be the worst bunch of, I thought I was going to say pundits, politicians I've ever seen in an election. Personally May by default. Liz Salter says, Jeremy Corbyn has had a good campaign. It's a pity more of his rallies haven't been shown on the news. They're on the news every day. That's why they have them.
But he's saying the same thing. They keep saying this. It's not massively televisual, is it, for somebody to be just going up there grandstanding on his moral issues?
Excuse me, strong and stable was being like a robotic mantra through this terrible campaign. You can't accuse Corbyn of saying the same thing when you've got strong and stable.
I do think, however, for the last week, this bit of the election is almost that bit. You know, when you're building up to do your GCSEs, it's sort of settled, really, isn't it now? I don't think anyone's changing their mind at this point.
Maybe after watching this, they will.
Yeah.
I doubt it. Just talking about strong and stable. Should we see if this actually is that strong and stable?
It's more strong and stable than Alex Salmon.
She actually is okay.
She looks so happy back then, doesn't she? Before she.
No.
I genuinely think that is more full of life than anything I've seen over the last 6 weeks.
She's got a little Mona Lisa smile going on there, hasn't she?
Got a wee sparkle in her eye.
Jeremy.
We need to now objectify.
Let's see if he's strong and stable.
Is that
yeah?
Is that a relative? Is that like realistic in terms of the height difference?
No, I think she's just. There's someone who's not strong and stable. Alex Salmon is coming to.
See, that was basically Alex Salmon, because nobody had mentioned referendum.
Oops! Oh no, Jeremy's gone as well.
It's coalition of chaos.
We are the
coalition of chaos. It's all kicking off.
Because nobody had mentioned an independence referendum for 17 minutes, right? And then he just sort of just lean in and.
That was like him going for a snog. It was like
on the head. Is that?
That was
terrifying. Your technique? Right. We've got to wrap up before the entire studio collapses around our ears. It has made it feel like the room covered though, which is good. What's your prediction on the night? What's it going to look? What's the electoral map going to look like?
It's going to be, well, as it always does, overwhelmingly Conservative. Labour support in anywhere that seems to have tram links, which seems to be the general place you find Labour support. I still think about a 75 majority.
Okay.
Done.
Okay.
I'm not calling it. I've got it wrong so many times. Actually, I have got it right in the last couple of things, but I'm not calling it.
Come on, Ayesha.
Okay.
A prediction. I trust your judgment.
I'm not going to do it.
And I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there because we've run out of time.
I'll get the information out of her. I'll get her drunk.
Well, you know what? I think we might have to go to the pub after you read this comment.
Okay, here we go.
Kirsty Lloyd, this is so cringy. You have no idea what you're talking about.
That's true.
Lol.
That's absolutely true.
That's true. That's a fact,
I'm
Kirsty.
partially
You are
informed
totally.
person,
You are absolutely right.
It's the lol. It's just.
I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and work for you, Gov.
Yeah.
You might be hiring a lot of
Yeah,
people
exactly.
come Friday morning. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, Alex Salmon tried to kiss you on the head. But
It's all right. It's all about a debate.
What are you going to be doing on the night?
I'm going to be up. I'm going to be. I don't know if I can push it, but I think Matt Ford is doing an election all nighter, so I might swing by there for a bit, and then I'll be toasting a strong and stable dawn for Britain.
You'll be on the airwaves?
Yes, I will.
Okay, and I'm going to be on Facebook as well from behind the scenes of the BBC Election Night studio in Elstree, which is great because I'll get to see the events unfold on this very page. But the best thing is I'll get to hassle David Dimbleby all night. Anyway, I hope we didn't hassle you too much today. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for watching. See you again. Bye.